Hello, boys and girls. How are you? So today we're going to continue reading Ben's Revolution, Benjamin Russell, and the Battle of Bunker Hill. So now we're in the part of the Battle of Bunker Hill. So I want you to be paying attention, and I want you at the end to write in the discussion board. I want you to write how many times did it take the British to defeat the colonists, which are now beginning to be called provincial? So when you hear provincial, they're talking about the colonists or the patriots, the ones who are fighting against the British. So how many times did the British have to attack for them to win, to take over Bunker Hill? Okay, ready? Okay, so where the last part that we read is that Colonel Prescott was supposed to build a fort in Bunker Hill. So Bunker Hill was a mile behind Brits Hill. So he built it in Brits Hill. But the problem of building it in Brits Hill was that Brits Hill, the British could see them. So they knew what they were doing. They could see them very well. So the British are seeing that they're building a fort. And of course, the British don't want a fort. You know, they don't want them to be protected, the provincial men, the patriots. So they're going to attack them. And that is where we left. Okay, chapter 12, the attack. Now here we can see that it's the British already attacked, and here we can see Colonel Prescott waving his sword. Colonel Prescott. Okay, once they reached the top of Prospect Hill, Ben and his friends could not believe what they saw. British warships were everywhere, firing on the provincial fort on Brits Hill and on the militiamen streaming across the narrow Charleston Neck to join the fighting. The boys could see William Prescott standing on top his fort and waving his sword and yelling at the British as cannonballs sailed through the air and smashed into the dirt all around him. To Prescott's left, hundreds of soldiers were frantically building barricade that was half stone and half rail fence. Okay, so they're building barricades. It says frantically, and when you're doing something frantically, you're all nervous and you are in a hurry. That's right, because they need to build barricade because that is going to help them not get bullets. That's right, and so that's what they're doing. They could also see Israel Putnam, one of the few men on a horse, riding back and forth across Charleston Neck, urging the man to hurry. Every time he came close to Ben and the boys up on their heel, they would jump up and down and cry out, "Huzzah, old Putman!" And huzzah means hooray, old Putman. Oh, let's see what happens next. Okay, so this is chapter 13, is watching the war. Now, as you can remember, here is Boston, the city of Boston. Now, Ben and his friends live in the city of Boston, but the city of Boston, the British soldiers did not close the city of Boston, so people couldn't come in or out, and they were with the provincial man. Okay, and there, on the other side of the harbor, was the city of Boston. From their vantage point, Ben and his friends could see a fleet of boats assembling on the waterfront near Boston. So you can see them. Hundreds of curious colonists had turned out, dotting the hillsides and crowding the roofs of their houses to watch the battle unfold. He was too far away to tell, but Ben couldn't help but wonder whether his parents were on those roofs looking for him. So here's Boston, and we see all those British ships assembling, coming together. Oh, look at this. It's a British ship. You can see the British flags, and they're firing. Let's read to see what happens. Chapter 14, outnumbered. As the boats approached, Ben could see that each one was crowded with British soldiers, their silver bayonets glinting in the sun. Once the British soldiers had been rowed across the harbor to the Charleston shore, they assembled in a long line that expanded almost all the way across the peninsula. At their head was General William Howe, a tall man with black eyes and dark hair, who was surrounded by his staff of officers. Suddenly, a British warship fired a different kind of cannonball. Instead of a black dot, this one looked like it was on fire, and when it landed in the abandoned city of Charleston, a house burst into flame. Soon the Charleston was on fire, and a great cloud of smoke rose over the two armies. So as you can remember, the city of Charleston, the people who lived there, they abandoned it. They left because they knew war was coming, so they left. Good thing they left us, right? Okay, so let's see what happens next. Mixed emotions. So mixed emotions is when you have, for example, you're going to go to Disneyland and you're so happy, but at the same time, you might be sad because you're going to Disney World with a friend, and you're sad because you want your family to go with you. That's right. So you have mixed emotions. Okay. Through the smoke, Ben and his friends watched as the redcoats marched towards the provincial soldiers. The British believed that the militiamen would run in panic when confronted with the impressive sight of 2,000 soldiers marching toward them. But they did not run. So over here, you know which soldiers are this, that's right? They're the provincial soldiers. They're the patriots, the colonists. So the British thought when they saw all the British, the 2,000 British, they were gonna run. But they didn't do that. Later, the boys learned that old Putman told his men to hold their fire until they saw the whites of the enemy's eyes. And the whites means like when you can see the white part of your eye, so that means they're coming near. Then, only then, when the British soldiers were an easier target, did the provincials fire. The boys cheered when most of the British soldiers fell down, but there were also tears in Ben's eyes. He remembered that winter day when a British officer had kindly fixed the boys' sledding run, and Ben didn't want that officer to die. So he has mixed feelings because he doesn't want British soldiers to die. That's right, it's a war, and you always have mixed feelings. That's right. The British retreated, but General Howe ordered them to try again. So they're going up there, and the patriots, the provincials, they're firing, and they retreat. They go back. But General Howe ordered them to try again. So they march up the hill a second time and were again cut down as they approached the provincials. Somehow, though, General Howe, who they could see standing all along near the provincial line, survived. So he's standing there, but he hasn't got shot in anything. Once again, Howe ordered his men to regroup at the bottom of the hill, where they were joined by hundreds more soldiers from Boston. It was time for one last try. So this is the third time they're going to try to get up the hill and get near where the provincial men are, the patriots. And here we see Ben watching. That's right. He was watching. He was not near. He was, further away, and he's watching. And we can see all the fire here. Okay. So here we see this painting. That's right. Because remember back then there was no photograph. So here, who are these soldiers? Ah, you're right. They're redcoats. That's right. The redcoats were the British soldiers, the British officers. Now here we see them again. They're going up the hill, and this time it seems that they're going in a group. That's right, not a line. So let's see if the British, if they retreat again or if they don't. The chapter 16, the bitter end. Conquer or die, was the cry of the British soldier as they march up the hill a third time. This is the third time they're going up. Once again, the provincials held their fire until the last possible second. Remember, the most possible second was that when they could see the white of the British eyes. Okay. But this time, the British were in a narrow column instead of a long, wide line. And even though many of them fell, those behind them kept coming up the hill. But this time, the provincials started to run out of gunpowder. So what happens if they run out of gunpowder? They might have their bayonets, that's right, their guns, but they're no good if they don't have gunpowder. Okay, then they fought with rocks and butts of their muskets. So they're throwing rocks, and the butt of the muskets is this part over here. Okay, so they're beginning to fight with that because they have no more gunpowder. But they could no longer hold the British back, and Colonel Prescott was forced to order a retreat. So they're retreating, they're leaving. So how many times did it take for the British soldiers to get to the hill, to conquer it, and for the provincial patriots to retreat? Yes, 3 times. So I want to see what comes next. Chapter 17, not defeated. And when you're defeat means lost, okay? That, for example, the patriots, the provincials, were defeated because the British won. But here it says not defeated. Most of the provincial soldiers didn't stop running until they were back in Cambridge. But not all put. He joined Ben and his friends on Prospect Hill and ordered them to start digging a fort. If the British should follow them into Cambridge, a fort on Prospect Hill was the only hope of saving the provincial army. All night, Put and Ben and the other boys worked on their earthen wall. Remember, they're digging with the earth, that's right. It was desperate and exhausting work, made all the more terrible by the thought of all those enemy soldiers streaming across Charleston Neck. But the British never came. Yeah, that must have been frightening for them, because while you're digging, that's right, you're digging there, you know that the British are coming. They can be there anytime, but they did not come. So this is what happened next. The British soon built their own fort on the Charleston Peninsula, this time on Bunker Hill instead of Bridge Hill, where they could keep a careful eye on the provincials in Cambridge. The British had won, but even General Howe had to admit that victory had come at too great a cost, to a great cost. Almost half his soldiers, close to 1,000 men, had been killed or wounded. The provincials had turned out to be far better soldiers than the British had ever expected. And as more and more soldiers joined the Patriot cause, conditions only got worse for the British in Boston. Okay, so now more and more soldiers are joining the Patriot cause. That's right. But what the British did was that they won, and when they won, they built their fort in on Bunker Hill. Okay, so that's where the provincials, the Patriots, wanted to build it. So by building it in Bunker Hill, they could see the Patriots, the provincials, they could watch them to see what was their next move. Okay, so we're gonna leave it over here, and here is chapter 18, and it's the new commander. And who do you think the new commander is? So now we know about the Battle of Bunker Hill, and I'll see you next week. And remember to answer the question: how many times did it take the British soldiers to defeat the provincial men, the Patriots? Okay, how many times did it take them? Okay, thank you, and I'll see you next week, and we'll finish reading this book. Thank you. Bye. I miss you, and I'm sending you all my love. Hope to see you soon. Bye.